how do we engage the mysterious? And what could the fascinations with a hidden life be like? And when I say liminal realities, the word liminal, if you read the description, there's an idea about it. I'm going to explain what it is. But pretty much the effort behind this episode is, for me as one human being, attempt to look into how much more we can see about the idea of the mysterious. Honestly, this episode, because I am a bit tired, is more like a, personal brainstorming session. But anyways, the fascinations with the hidden life, pretty much how fascinating would it be if there is a hidden life? It would be as fascinating as, being in a house. Imagine the world is like this, the world is a house, and we're in one room, and we suddenly discover there are other rooms. There's other ways where our effort to comprehend, or there's other ways the meaning of the world can move, and thus its meaning. And because we're temporary beings, it makes sense to go on the exploration. And I'll be using the notepad, by the way. So looking at the screen would be helpful. And if there is some people who already have notebooks, writing is the closest thing to a divine art. Okay. I guess one thing I could say is I'll read the definition. Pretty much people are like, Mr.Within, what do you mean by liminal reality? There is a definition from Richard Rohr about liminal space. And this is such an interesting definition for it. I would say it's a very, to me it feels like the right definition. Richard Rohr describes this liminal space, or the liminal, as a space where he says as where we are betwixt and between the familiar and the completely unknown. There alone is our old world left behind while we're not yet sure of the new existence. That's a good space where genuine newness can begin. Okay, let me bring the notepad and people can see it on the screen. There we go. So, let's look at the sentence. Fascinations with a hidden life. So when my mind looks at that sentence, okay, the question comes, let's say, I'll put it filter 1, okay, where I'm like, okay, from the view of the concept and the context, is it I'll say it this way, is it, so I'm using a question to, in some sense, open up the statement, and is it singular or plural or void or infinite? These are 4 contexts that the world can be considered. So I would say fascinations with a hidden life. So I would say the concept is the life, and us getting fascinated about the life, we can say, is the context. Okay, the fascination part. So hidden lives, right? Hidden life, it could be like, how would I say it, how many lives or senses of self or whatnot, or parallel realities are present in the moment at once. So when I'm looking at this idea of, like, so let's say somebody, becomes fascinated with a hidden life. So the question's like, okay, how many hidden lives? Is it just one hidden life? Is it just like we're in this room and we're looking at this window and the curtains are pulled, but we pull the curtains, we open the curtains, and it's like, do we see a final reality, or are we on some sort of multidimensional staircase of a world, like, we're on one step of it, or what is the context in regards to it being singular or plural? Right now, in 2022, people are looking at life and they're like, singular, this is it, this is all I am, I'm content, right? There's people on this planet who are content with just this, the simplicity of the singular. There's nothing right or wrong about this, by the way. It's more like the style a person chooses to conceptually exist, and that conceptual existence is based on the style of a context they've chosen, right? So if I choose this context that there's only matter, if somebody comes and tells me, hey, do you believe in space? Do you believe like there's space between objects? I would be like, no, it's anything that is not a substance with shape is unreal, right? So I'm just trying to give you an example that the context, like right now, people listening to me, anybody who's listening to me, you have a sense of self. Now, that sense of self, you know it, okay? And that sense of self is standing in a world. Now, what tends to happen, whether people know this or not, this is the beautiful thing about how I say philosophy is not like a subject you learn at school, it's part of the nature of the evolutionary creature that we are. We want to see more out of the environment because it helps our survival. Right, that instinctually it's as if like the mind does not like there could be somebody who's, let's say, how can I tell you, let's say in a situation where people need to people need to act fast and save someone. Imagine someone feels they were a coward in an emergency, okay? Now, whatever sort of cowardice or hesitation we choose to consider, but what I'm telling you is that when it comes to the inner realms, nobody has been a coward of allowing their intelligence to attempt to see where they are, right? This is what they don't often speak about, that location, experience of the existence of location, external location, is actually an internal event. So it's as if somebody's like Mr.Within, who are you? I choose to define it out of the location, right? I'm a human being on Earth, I'm a consciousness in the cosmos. Do you see? But I would say in some contexts, if somebody said, Mr.Within, who are you? I would be like, I am an unknown event, an intelligently energetic event. That means it's like there has never been, fools or geniuses. There has just been some force. And now that force for the human experience of life has access to two worlds. That means if you look at all the animals on this planet, most of them are logged into one reality, right? The physical existential reality. But mankind, our species, for some strange, call it a miracle, call it celestial intervention, whatever you like to choose to see it as, hidden potential activation, whatever, right? It's like we have an ability to instantly recognize we are logged into a existential physical server of reality, but simultaneously the way we know the physical server is actually through an inner how would I tell you, it's like there's a you that's existing as a body, and then there's you existing as an idea of this body, or an owning idea behind your eyes. But the reality is that this creature opened its eyes, first unconsciously moving, then attained consciousness of its own movement, and now the sophistication of the consciousness of its movement is going beyond the boundaries of itself. That's the time we're living. We are, I would say, 2022. If somebody in the future says what kind of advanced communicators lived in 2022, I would say it's that time where the great beings, poetically speaking, the greatness of 2022 has already clapped for the past. And so it's as if a sort of new celebration, this might sound strange, but right now, and this is how there's an inefficient civilization, because people get tired by going to work, right? But in an advanced civilization, the celebration of work is like more work, right? And let me tell you, like, people are going to be like, what do you mean, Mr. Within? I'll be like this. I mean, imagine you have just achieved. Okay, let's say a team of people on the planet achieved like something very advanced and incredible for the species, right? Their celebration would be more like, rather than, planting a flag and feeling like you've discovered something, it's like the discovery is just the beginning of how you have stepped into a new world, right? You see, in life, this is the hilarious thing, we actually don't know who we are as beings, but we know that our effort, at least for some time, as long as we're physically alive, creates the illusion of meaning, right? So if somebody was like, what's the most mysterious thing about meaning? It's how it's here, how it's a positioning based on an effort that is called upon through attention. Our eyes open, then the body moves. Do you see? Like, that's the nature of this animal, right? To be honest, we are all solar powered, right? The mind, at least, is solar powered. Why? Because without light, what would we see to even acknowledge? That means if suddenly, imagine the sun, like a light bulb, some force turns the sun off. Imagine one day in the future they see the sun has been turned off, right? I'm not talking about like the entropy of like countless years into the future. I'm saying just imagine one day the sun, or like midday the sun was turned off. Then the species would suddenly realize the light is the permission for the recognition of reality as dualistic. We cannot, like when somebody's becoming fascinated with hidden dimensions to the moment, it's as if the brain, let's say the mind, it engages it as if, okay, what I'm looking at, how did it get here, where is it going, and what does it mean that it is here? On the most purest level, the simplicity of reality is meaningless. You know? That means it's as if like what the believers were fighting over, or the idea worshippers or the language worshippers fight over, the philosophers are in some sense just seeing that it's like we cannot presume absolute certainty in a changing world. Therefore, we must become playful. This is going to sound strange, but we must become playful with our truths. Right? If we become serious with our truths, you become possessed. Pretty much that's the notion. Right? Life for the mind on earth, is kind of like what ideas you're choosing to possess your value. That's really it, right? That means I'm living in Canada. It's like the Canadian flag is a value for me, right? So I'm saying also, it's like how would I say it? It's like I'm trying to tell you that the ideas that roam in the valleys behind our eyes at times define us. What free will is actually attention leaping between inner events and images. People don't say this about thinking, that in reality every person's like an unknown viewer, and then it's how the sequence of the arrival of the knowledge. For example, my knowledge, or when somebody as a speaker right now, it's the way the ideas behind my eyes are poetically taking shape before I vocalize them, right? So there is a rhythm, there is a movement, right? Knowledge is not just you found a sticker, put it on your forehead, and it's like fake enlightenment, fake. You could connect the letter, link the word fake and enlightenment to fake. Really hard to say. Fake enlightenment. Oh man. You know how many people I honestly feel they have to feel and they have to tell themselves they're enlightened, because if they don't, who would be here? That's the challenge of mysticism. The challenge of mysticism is that when all the ideas go away, what are you left as, right? This is something that, the psychologist, the philosopher, the scientist, the sociologist, it's like all the other professions, none of them could accept that it was all in the middle of nowhere. And I'll tell you honest, let me tell you a reason why some of these Mr. Within talks may appear, at least this is my hunch of why these Mr. Within talks are appearing maybe as revolutionary to people if they actually should close their eyes and try to see the pictures I'm painting here, right? But let me tell you why I think it would be revolutionary. Why? Because in order to maintain the civility for civilization, the species has to fake it. Why? Because it's a realm of multiple impinging freedoms, right? It's as if you need to behave in a certain way to be able to fit into the world, but if you want to see something beyond the world, then why? In some sense, it's not enough to fit into it, right? So many people are trying to fit into subjective context. You know, I mean, I could see, like, let's say 5 people trying to get in a car, you know, and that being a sort of, okay, it's like they won't fit in, right? But imagine, you know, people trying to fit into 5 ideas, right? I was at this house party years ago, and the owner of the house party, there was a bunch of people there, the owner of the house party comes and tells everybody, just announces, like it was a crazy house party, you know. The owner came and announced that he has multiple personalities, right? And in some sense, it's like a personality of him is like a good person, a personality of him is evil, you know, as if he's telling people, you know. And for me, like, I realized that it's just identification with the content of one's mind. That's it. Like, that's anybody's suffering could be. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? Like, it's, you know, if somebody really was like, okay, let's say this world is inefficient. I mean, it appears so, but it's like lurking in the inefficiency on the surface of the earth is the hidden visions of, you know, walking on sky cities one day. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like Leonardo da Vinci, this man of, let's say, of a complex mind, this Renaissance man and polymath, right? He has this, you know, very notable, famous quote where he says simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And imagine, you know, you're looking at a polymath and you're like, man, what you're doing is not simple. How are you doing it, right? Imagine somebody wanted to figure out, you know, a Da Vincian polymath secret, okay? And Da Vinci, imagine, you know, somebody who asks him, how are you doing all this stuff? He just turns back and he says, buddy, imagine, like, or at least this is how I would imagine him saying it, right? Where I would look at it in this way, where when we are simple, you are left to see the complex. But if you feel in the moment you're complex, then it's limited. Then the ability, the range of creative expression is limited, you know. A true revolutionary as a multidimensional being is a being that is not convinced by any of the dimensions of its perception, but becomes convinced of the movement. The dynamic part of life is very convincing, right? But in a static mode, it's like, you know, I think of it this way. People are not just living on Earth. Like, don't be convinced that people are living on Earth. People are living in their own minds. They are living in ideas. Our name is the initial idea, you know? Imagine poetically this soul enters an arcade, you know, and starts playing this game of a human life. And this soul sits on a computer station, you know, like an internet cafe, imagine, right? And logs into its account, logs into this video game called Earth. And in that video game, creates a username, has a password, types both of them in, and enters the video game of, let's say, creaturehood on Earth. Now, the interesting thing about this video game of Earth is that you don't get to choose where your eyes open at first. So birth is like, you know, it's literally like poker. You know, it's like who's getting what cards, you know? Right? So it's as if randomity selects our character customization when we open our eyes as a conscious human being. Or when we open our eyes to the idea that we are conscious. So in this video game, right, this character has, let's say, 1 level to 100 levels. Let's say in the future, species could get its act straight, right? And the life cycle of every human being turned into an efficient 100 years, efficient and smooth 100 years. Yeah. You know what I find remarkable also, guys, is that how many people, like we could literally classify people who have thought about a future that's just one day ahead. Let's say there's people who don't think about the future, and then there's people who think about the future one day ahead. Then there's people who think about the future, let's say, like in the range of 100 years. Okay, I got it. Imagine. First classification is, you know, somebody who doesn't care for the future, doesn't see the future, envision the future, right? And then we have someone who envisions the future one day, then it goes up by, you know, we keep adding a 0. So it's as if like somebody who's envisioning 10 days, somebody who's envisioning 100 days, somebody who's envisioning 1,000, it goes up to years, then it becomes years. So 100, let's say 1 year, okay, it's a progression. So let's say we go up to, the issue is I said days instead of years, but okay, let's say somebody envisions 1,000 years ahead. If you are to envision 1,000 years ahead, it would be like as if you are among the very few people on this planet who care that much to envision what the next 1,000 years looks like, right? Like how many people are actually fascinated by the future, right? They're only fascinated by future time frame wise, only their lifetime. To be fascinated for what is the species going to do in the next 1,000 years? By the way, anybody who has naturally has had that mindset, it's like, you know, I am one of your friends and you're not. So envisioning 100 years ahead, everybody who wants to just live a good life is doing that. But imagine somebody wants the species to live a good life, not just our temporary or biological bubble of reality. You know, like for me, I would tell you something that creates stress for me. You know. Is this idea that the species doesn't have a collective identity that is efficient. Usually visions of the future are like, oh my god, an asteroid's gonna hit and aliens are gonna invade, we're gonna get trapped in cyberspace, or we're gonna become robots, do you know what I mean? Or we're gonna destroy ourselves. It's all like inefficient failure, as if we need to find a winning strategy for any species similar to us that is alive. That means we are students and celestial students, right? And our classroom, imagine, okay, let's say hypothetically in a parallel universe, there was a version of human beings on Earth, or hilariously imagine in a parallel universe, there was no inhabitants on Earth, but all the other planets had inhabitants, like civilizations. I'm saying in the future, okay, let's say on one of the planets we start seeing civilizations possibly. Let's say we look at, for example, Saturn's ring, and we think that ring was put there. You know, it was as if a civilization living on Saturn that created a ring around its planet. Like, imagine that. It doesn't matter what planet, even Jupiter, you know, or whatever it is. Or Eureka, but whatever I'm saying. The subtext to the mind of the average person is only caring for the future, a future that is 100 years, you know? And when I look at, believe it or not, I'll share this, you know, when I look at politics, guys, like sometimes I'm just looking at videos of, you know, political debates, or, you know, various things. Somebody in the chat section says Saturn's rings may be our consciousness. No, guys, what I was saying is not that it's our consciousness. I was saying, or maybe that's just an opinion, but I'm saying, what I'm saying is, imagine Saturn before Earth, people came around in Earth. Imagine Saturn had a civilization trying to advance, and that civilization became so advanced that it created a ring around itself, you know, like a ring city around the planet would be an incredible vision to go for. They say, like, if you love it, put a ring on it, you know. So if we love the Earth, we'll put a ring sky city around it, an interstellar city, you know. Anyways, I was Pat's batteries, you know, being sacrificed, or I gotta do something else. I think the issue, guys, is that the page is going to change, so I'll just start it. Let's start. We have a human being. We have the concept of time. We have, the human being has a psyche, okay? Or a conditional mind, a mind that is being defined by its conditions, the conditions itself. So, the human being, some human beings, let's say this is the eyes of the human being, and some human beings see 100 years. Now imagine some people see 1,000 years. And somebody is tired of counting the years and just says infinite years. To be honest, I'm one of those people who are like, how do you build an advanced civilization that is so advanced that it can successfully put the word ad infinitum beside it, you know, like an advanced civilization ad infinitum, and it's like a advanced civilization infinitely progressing in the number, right? As if we, as human beings on Earth, imagine like, you know, I should write this in my science fiction. I was gonna say, imagine like a school bus from Andromeda Galaxy comes to the Milky Way Galaxy, and in this, let's say, spaceship, gigantic school bus, right? In all the planets around Earth that are empty, it's like inhabitants of the capable of living in those planets are being, you know, placed there. But in front of our eyes, it's just happiness. You know, it's all way. Somebody's like, define the world, and the answer was like, the world is the flat. The world is limiting who we can be. The world is how we are, you know, the painted, moving biological statues of nature. Person who thinks of 100 years, probably your psyche in the future is you're going to become a globalist. Or excuse me, sorry. The psyche of somebody who just wants to serve, that wants things to be efficient only for 100 years. Yes, we call that selfish love. Somebody who cares for the continuity of intelligence for 100 years is someone who is afraid of death, right? Because the moment we consider we're a multidimensional being, like some things can't die, right? As much as we are beings and parts of us can, let's say, die, there's a part to how we're being that, because it was never an object in the beginning, cannot die. Right, the nature of the animation of intelligence is that sound is linking with images in the internet. So how the images move behind our eyes is the dance of free and unknown free will, you know, becoming known in reality. Now, for me personally, I'm in this kind of odd position where I've written a book, like, or let me say it properly, a book is in the works, where I am sharing a strategy for an advanced civilization ad infinitum. context of, as if the question is, where is eternity? As someone who holds the context as void, this is a human being that is untouching reality. Emptiness is not just, a movement away, but it is in some sense like, like a museum where nobody looked at anything. Like that. It's like as if in the inner realms, nobody touched the museum or engaged. And to me, it's hilarious that museums, they have small print, to the artwork, but instead what they need to have is behind the wall, sorry, not a museum, let's say an art gallery, behind the wall, or even a museum, let's say there's an ancient statue or something, right? It's like behind the wall of that, let's say, object, they need to have the description written on the wall in big letters, it's as if museums nowadays, you gotta, stretch your neck a lot. But anyways, I was saying the idea of, okay, if I consider emptiness, if there was a dimension where the value of it was void, emptiness is strangely immortal. I think that should be an episode. Emptiness is not immortal, eternal. When I go to the singular, a snapshot, photo, value of all existence happening at once. That's eternal, right? It's like the view of existence. Existing is an eternal view, right? Realistically, it would be change, or I should say not change. I'm just saying a singular moment of viewing all existence just being. That is like an eternal quality about the world. If I go to think of it in a dualistic sense, the endless dance of chaos and order is kind of like change is eternal and chaos and order just endlessly dance. I think I'm one of those rare people in history who got bored of the idea of good and evil, and just a traditional chaos and order. We have to reinvent the world with greater freedoms, and if we don't, the future species will be like, why not? If it comes to infinity, for me, the vision of an advanced civilization. Of an advanced civilization. Is equal to eternal infinitude. That means the effort. If just by every person's attention for a moment being like, let's say the whole species wanted to, we had the vision of trying to make on Earth the most advanced possible species. That means the most advanced humanity, the most advanced civilization. Let's say our species decided that. That means it would be an advanced civilization of eternal infinitude. Some people are fascinated by the idea of gods. Some people are fascinated by, let's say, science fiction, fantasy, like various, so many different ways that it's animated by people's eyes. But I'm saying, like, for me, I think the purpose of, I'll be honest, I think the purpose of life on Earth is for the creature that is on this rock, on this planet, to discover the potential of its actual ability. That means it's like how can we advance in front of our eyes if before behind our eyes we're not seeing much further ahead, right? We're living in a civilization where our success is dependent on how good of an inner time traveler we are, how far ahead of the moment we are standing before we walk into that moment, because really it's about the comprehension of nature, guys. Like, what else can we? It's like the concept of teaching has never made sense. It's like, it's more like every member of a species reporting back and trying to see where this whole event of life goes. The mystery of life is so much more of a fascinating vision than a snapshot photo of language. So a multidimensional being has an ability, and that means, okay, so imagine this is my vision, Mr. Within's vision of an advanced community. An advanced communicator is a multidimensional being in a world where they can comfortably be nothing. They can comfortably be singular. They can comfortably be dualistic, a dualistic entity, and they can comfortably be an infinite being. We know that fantasy becomes reality, but what if the idea of how would an eternal species behave? That means imagine the fear of death was surpassed, and we saw beyond the dreams and illusions of the world, or like I think Freud wrote a book called The Death of an Illusion or The Death of a Dream. I think it was Death of an Illusion, right? But there was this idea that human beings will be attached to the content of their mind until they can actually be nothing. Some people think, is it karma that we go towards nothing? I would say no. It's more like something we thought that we were not moving, we suddenly realize we are moving. So I'm saying that as just to connect this to the context of the episode. It's as if you have observed your unhidden life honestly, and because you have honestly observed it, right, that's where the unknown can have a relationship with the moment. So it's like when somebody has cultivated enough of a moment of honest observance, then they free themselves from their ego. Because the nature of the mind is that when we ignore it, it moves us. But when we communicate, believe it or not, with, if every person realized the mind is an intelligent field of activity, imagination is not just some people have it, some doesn't. It's literally an antenna establishing a relationship with the network of how everything in existence has existence in common, right? So it could be this view where if people look at the screen, I'll draw it, right? We have 0 and we have the parameter of infinity. And at some point we have the singular, right? And at some point we have the dualistic. So just like, let's say the Big Bang is like perceived as a sort of expanding cone, right? So similarly, I would create the philosopher's version of that. And this is at least from, if somebody says, Mr. Within, what school of philosophy? The one I am building, you know? But that means it's, we choose the worlds we walk in, but if we realize who is seeing those worlds is beyond the definitions that the world gives them, that means if you are not convinced of the meaning of life, it's as if you are in that state where meaning doesn't have to be ideological, so the only way it can be is experiential. Right? It's like somebody feeling they're doing the wrong thing, realizing there has never been the idea of a wrong thing, and it's all geometric expression of movement. Right? It's as if, imagine you looked at reality and you're like, no way, look at how many shapes are changing. And human beings are like active, intelligent shapes. Knowledge is really the activity of shape, and it's contexted in dualism. That means in a non-dualistic realm, there is no such idea as knowledge. You know? I find it this way, that the mystery that is the movement of our soul in the moment is in some sense like, it's as if we can see the decisions of our mind, but we cannot see how the mind is deciding to allow images to enter our inner realms. And to anybody who wants to have a relationship with the inner realms, like, this is the idea. You just sit down, right? This is honestly, I would say it's not even a meditation technique, it's just a briefing. I'm just telling people, you know, a universal being must start universal. Right? That means here's the challenge of the concept of happiness, greatness, you know, worthiness. All of these ideas are just waiting for their selection. That means, let's say a person realizes it's like it's just angles of perception to a changing event. You know? It's just remarkable, this life. You know, I totally know what it feels like to be stranded on an island. And what I mean by that is like from a universal sense, we're stranded on a galactic island. I forgot I had coffee here. Anyways, I'll continue with this diagram. Here, I know how to draw it. Here we go. So, what happened from nothing to something? like what was the journey from nothing into something that's like a, you could say, mystery, a divine mystery over a universal sector. How did stuff arise before there was stuff to arise? Like, that's the question. Now, we start and we are born, and this is where I would say human is born in a world. Guys, I'm gonna just finish this diagram quickly and okay, now the wire's connected. Alright. I thought for a second the microphone wire was disconnected, but anyways, human is born in a world, and then this is where it gets interesting. It becomes a dualistic journey. So this starting point here, this is called the self. This is called others, and this is called world. So we have self, we have others, and we have world. Now, when it comes to infinity, it becomes known and it becomes unknown. I think I drew that right. So what I'm saying is, like, there was a journey, a phase to conscious, to life, where it was from the unconscious something appearing and becoming conscious of itself. And then the human being is born. That's the initial point of physical consciousness, right? And then this physical consciousness, also has a subjective recognition of itself, and pretty much it's the triangle. I wrote about this in my the inverted triangle inside the circle idea, right? So there should be a circle here. Like that sort of view, right? But anyways, what I'm trying to say is so there's nothing, then there's a self, then this self knows it's a self because it's in the trio of there having to be a world first and there having to be others, right? And when it comes to the world, is it known or unknown? And when it comes to others, which is another way of saying the species, the life of the species, it is also known and unknown, right? Now, the unknownness of our species is that could our species be living a different life? This would be equivalent to if everybody was a simulation in the world. It's as if everything is living a different life, right? As if everything has a hidden life. Like everything, not just like everything, you know? Is the ultimate freedom of being. You know, the vision goes to that point. Like, what level of a freedom do we want? Right? So it's as if there's and technically it's like the known and the unknown of the self, right? Like, we can also see this sort of triangle taking place here. We don't just want to be, you know, the tragedy of a species in the void. We want to be the victory of a civilization into the greatest advancement. To me, an advanced civilization is like the way religious people get connected. This idea is that it is the divine work of a species. Because what is God? The inconceivable. What is the future? Inconceivable. And where is everybody heading? Everybody is heading to the future. To me, the true definition of God is the future. Let me be the first person in history to say God is the future. Anybody who wants to see God advance civilization into the future. It's not something that I'm saying a person's whole life should be consumed by just this vision of every moment advancing civilization, but I'm saying it makes sense to celebrate comfortably in an advanced world, you know. To me, it feels like there's some hidden chess moves that if the species cares enough for the future, it sacrifices its obnoxious strictness for truth in the present. That means, like, teachers teach students, hey kids, there's a future. Every human being is tasked to advancing towards this and discovering. Really, if I was to create an educational system, there would never be the word student around. It's like it doesn't, you know. It would just be Explorer 1, Explorer 2, based on which students enrolled in the school first, you know. much, guys. I'm trying to suggest we don't know how we got here, but we know that there's something here that can see, that can experience duality. The duality of our lives and the position of the free will is pretty much, if life was a video game, it's like a first person perspective video game, right? And the challenges and the quest log of this video game is based on the individual's ability to see the world. Imagine somebody studied their self, imagine somebody went to this guru, right? And imagine a guy named the guru. That means his first name was Guru. Right? And this person goes to this guru, and the guru the guru says study yourself. And so let's say a human being, like mysticism is like extreme self-study, or I should say advanced self-study, right? Something like that. But really what it is like after the person has mastered and has come down to the truths. That means that, let's say, a way to understand something is to discover its simplest truth, right? And so when we come down to the simplest truth of the human being, it's the unknown actually being in an unknown world, but this unknown world has a shape. It's like we are a mysterious attention lost in space rather than, the content we identify momentarily with, That means to truly understand the nature of the human mind, you have to be able to watch your life like you're in a cinema, and who you really are watching in the cinema is actually the choice. It comes down to how before we were alive, the context of life had a selection process, like how hilarious would it be, right, if honestly, how hilarious would it be if, like, we entertain this idea of transmigratory souls? And these transmigratory souls, there's a sort of, like, imagine examination they have to go through before they go to their, like, next life, So imagine in a universal model where reincarnation is how souls are like entering, like logging into manifestation and leaving. So imagine like before entering manifestation, there's like superior forces, and they're like, okay, soul, why do you want to reincarnate on Earth? And it's like an interview, imagine, So for the notepad, it's just a straight line through to the question mark, Okay. Let me, sorry guys, I was writing stuff down that I wanted to, make note of for later. And it was like I had to, just write them down. Anyways. Where can I take this talk? The fascinations with a hidden life, liminal realities, mysterious moments where the future is a question mark and the past will become a question mark, To be living in a moment, to be present as a creature of attention and, let's say, mind context. What is the freedom that the unhidden seek in the hidden? It's as if, like, what is it? Why is existence existing? And so it's as if the opportunity for intelligent life after eons has become a question mark. In honest simplicity, before we have the energy to do anything, we're nothing. And in nothing, the mysteries of the soul bask until they become the light of their own eyes. The moon hides behind the clouds, and ashes are blown by the winds, And from the remnants of a failed old earth comes a new earth. As a multidimensional being, there's contexts. Actually, I'm going to draw this out. The human being has a life of self. Has a life of species. Has a life of mind, inner experience, and it has a life. So take this in. It's as if we have a physical life, but now when it comes to us having a non-physical life, that non-physical life is actually happening in regards to how the ego is being conducted and by what mysterious attention. It's as if what unknown mystery is observing the idea that we are, or we're choosing to be. Like, it's as if, like, who is seeing through your eyes, and is it limited to the idea of a who? Like, it could be that what is actually being human life is the whole universal sector. We think we're just because we're walking on the earth as if like we are disconnected from the earth, but it's impossible. The signals that our mind receives is how the Gaian mind communicates to itself. So what I'm trying to say is that the planet is so smart, like poetically speaking, the planet is so smart that it designed a creature where its mind is dependent on it. You know, that means imagination, or is another way of saying a gift of the earth. You know, just existence is it's like an awareness to existence is the greatest leap in imagination, I would say. So there's the life of self, the life of the species, the life of mind, and we say a life of truth, let's say, or ultimate being, right? Not an ultimate being as in some character in a story, but ultimate being as the ultimate being, the origins, beginning, and destiny's ending. It's like it's more kind of like a universal mystery harmonizing itself by extending itself into physical manifestation, and then realizing why it had in some sense input itself into manifestation was simply because it's a limit testing. It's as if we're multidimensional beings limit testing how manifestation is limited, or what are the potentials, right? Because the future will embrace the idea of a collective mind in ways that we can't imagine now, because the technologies haven't arrived yet. But what we can do is realize that there's going to be many events in the future, and the destiny of the species is dependent with how, in a single moment, it can choose to care for the future of civilization. That means imagine there was a saint, okay, and this saint was like, I love this person, I love that person, I love this animal, bird, whatever the saint saw, it loved. But now, if we said what is one of the most fascinating things we can love, it is the destiny of the movement of the world, That means it's like the person was like, who am I? And then it was like, wait a minute, it's like, what is the world? And then wait a minute, how can there be a sense of self in a world if it's one event taking place? Right? So the mystery of reality is that duality has been authorized, and as a sort of to draw parallels to this, to let's say from a theological perspective of Abrahamic traditions, as if conscious access to duality is how it's the archetype of the duality is the fallen angel. Duality is the metaphor for what happens after there is singular truth. And so in the Abrahamic tradition, God creates perfection. And check this out, guys, people don't realize the significance of a religious metaphor, right? That means it's like to use religion properly is another way of saying to comprehend the world it suggests. is that the artificial does not outlast the value of the original. So it's as if we are to build an advanced civilization, and if people were like Mr. Within, what kind of what type of people do you see worthy of building an advanced civilization? People who can see beyond the people. Those are the people ready to serve the advanced civilization, the greatest vision, of eyes in space on Earth. I'm trying to say every person should be attempting, discrimination and all of this. We have lived through that for too long, right? Right now, we're living at a point where rather than people judging things to have value, right, it's the attention to move beyond an efficiency that doesn't need judgment, right? So the idea is like, right now there's a version of the Earth where things are happening as they are, but if we were to wonder about a different Earth with a different species, with the species behaving differently, it would be like the elegance of advanced efficiency is like a complete freedom. How would I say it? It's like advancement is ultimate ideological freedom, experiential advancement. Anyways, we're just human beings that, experience a world that's existing. And how or what kind of energy we were while we were alive will suggest the future's efficiency. That means the smartest people on the planet are already living as universal beings. Why? Because the freedom of self has occurred. When a person becomes free of the idea of themselves, they become, I would say, their attention sharpens. So anybody who has an ability, who has incredibly good reflexes, it's because the person has a lot of experience not being an idea, greatest fascination with a hidden life is the potential of that hidden life. That means it's like the coolest thing about the idea of aliens is not like aliens, it's what can happen if there are aliens, Can we expect in the future the mystery of our eyes should not be ignored. And the greatest idea is that in the shortest possible time, with the most efficient quality, right, we embark upon the journey of trying to build a civilization so ahead of its time that we are wondering what a civilization for immortal beings or eternal beings would look like. Right? That means when you realize to be a person is a choice, but to be the absence of a person is also a choice, but the recognition of why you are anything at all, it's as if it's like every person, every soul is armed with the geometry of its DNA. Do you know? The mysteries of the self lead to the definitions of the world. And these definitions of the world, as the poet Rumi says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a place. He then says, I will meet you there. And then he says, when the soul sits on that grassland, the world is too full to talk about. That means the most advanced state. Peace, harmony, efficiency, and clarity. And clarity is really efficient vision. Success comes down to efficient vision, and the efficiency is based on how far its aim is. Anyways, guys, this was a long episode. Really, this concept of the liminal is something that the way I interpret it is that there are rare moments in your life where in the absence of meaning, the potential of meaning is witnessed. That means imagine human beings like suddenly woke up one day and they were like, oh my god, it's so common sense and logical that creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere try to discover their advanced potential and the greatest outcome. That means on this planet everybody's trying to be better, right? Like, you know, this is something everybody may agree. Everybody's trying to be better. But now imagine what is the best case scenario. And the best case scenario right now, the species has 200 years of file work. That's another way of saying, in our attempts to create a cyber reality, we are also redefining reality. And the responsibility that comes with the time traveler is in some sense the ability to know what you should reveal. It's another way of saying that the nature of the human mind is a timeless being. And this timeless being has nothing to fear because fear is conditional to what happens in time. Whether it's liminal realities or fascination with a hidden life, every person is experiencing the moment anew. And so once we recognize the rhythms and poetically the spirit of novelty finds us, that means the person didn't just let go of their past, they let go of any context to anything and standing in that moment of just pure being. The word being becomes it fades out into the space where it's happening. So we're in a space, most likely beyond this life, we are the space. Because where does stuff in space go? It goes back to it, you know. Wonder about the mystery of your eyes. It is the privilege of a lifetime. Much blessings and namaste. Thank you for listening.